Okay, this is the interactive part of the message. What are some of your favorite Christmas songs? Come on. Silent Night, really? Okay, awesome. Oh, Come Emmanuel. Oh, Holy Night, that'd be one of mine. How about albums? Like your go-to albums, Christmas albums. Somebody said Mariah Carey. Me too. And Mariah Carey and Michael Bublé. That's like my staple, but I so need help with new ones. I just kind of get stuck on them on repeat. I need help. I need help. So I'm one of those annoying people that starts Christmas a long time ago in the year. And, many of the songs that we sing at Christmas time are reminders that Christmas time is supposed to be happy. I mean, songs like, it's the most wonderful time of the year, right? Feel free to sing along because I can't sing at all. And so it'll sound way better if you join me. Or here's another one. Have a holly jolly Christmas. It's the best time of the year. Or chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Right? And then there's Walking in a Winter Wonderland and Jingle Bells. And all of them communicate this time that Christmas is supposed to be a joyous, trouble-free season. Right? We have pictures in our head of children playing in church choirs, singing, and people smiling and getting along in the mall. And no, you go first. No, you were in line first. Right? But often, it is not that way. It is supposed to be the most wonderful time of year and the happiest season of all. But let me ask you, honestly, is that what you're experiencing this season? I mean, maybe not. For some of you, maybe personal problems are keeping you from experiencing the joy of the season. And I think we have tremendously high expectations of Christmas because we want everything to be perfect, but for many, it will be a difficult time of year because something has interrupted the joy. It might be stress or sickness or death or divorce or loneliness. And then for others, maybe it just seems like one crisis after another has run you over. And so with this avalanche of problems, it's hard to have that holly jolly Christmas. And some of you, maybe you're just working so hard or so busy and there's no time for sitting around roasting chestnuts. Who's got time for that? Right? Or maybe nothing is really wrong, but for some reason, you're just not into it. You're just not enjoying it. It's not providing you this emotional lift that you expected. In fact, it doesn't look like winter wonderland. It just looks like winter. Well, actually, it doesn't look like winter here, but some places it does. And I find is that in 30 years of ministry, that disillusionment at Christmas is not an unusual thing. We get so hyped up with expectations about what Christmas is supposed to be that often the real thing doesn't measure up. And then we're disappointed. So what can you do? What can I do this year to avoid disappointment? How can we improve our level of joy this Christmas? Are you in? Yes? Okay, 2 of the answers to that question, how we can have a more joyful Christmas, is actually found in the book of Matthew chapter 2. And it's the story of when the king, the wise men, the magi, came to see Jesus. And it says in verse 1, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the time of King Herod, magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, where is the one who's been born king of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and we've come to worship him. Well, when King Herod heard this, he was disturbed. And the reason he was disturbed because he thinks he's the king, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all of the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked, where's the Messiah to be born? In Bethlehem in Judea, they replied, for this is what the prophet has written. And again, this is the prophet Micah writing this. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. Again, quoting Micah. Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him, which he did not really want to do. And in verse 9 it says, after they heard the king, they went on their way. And the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary and bowed down and worshiped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. After having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. Okay, so verse 1 says that there were magi, these wise men who traveled from the east. And the area that they're talking about was Babylon. These wise men traveled from Babylon, which is actually the present-day Iraq. Now, where these wise men had gotten their information about the coming Messiah, we don't really know, but some scholars had said they got it because Daniel, who had been a Jewish boy years and years before, had been taken into captivity into Babylon, and Daniel, while he had been in Babylon, kept getting promoted as this captive until he became actually the chief magi. And so as Daniel studied and wrote, he could have left a lot of important information that would perhaps guide these later magi to the King of the Jews. And he told him exactly where he was going to be born, in Bethlehem. So they knew that a king was coming out of Bethlehem and that a star would guide them. Now, these wise men served in a really powerful, influential capacity as advisors to royalty. And they had an amazing reputation as the geniuses of society. So what would prompt someone to leave the comfort of their homes, to go on this dangerous journey? I mean, I'm sure they thought they were going to the middle of nowhere. And if they were coming from Babylon, then they traveled almost 500 miles. Over deserts, it probably took weeks. Can you imagine their neighbors' reaction? When the wise men said, hey, we're going to go on this long journey, and we're headed there. The neighbors probably went, where are you packing? You going on a journey? Yep. Where are you going? Well, somewhere in Bethlehem, we're not really sure where. How long are you going to be gone? I'm actually not sure about that either. So why did they make this trip? I think it was because they had faith in something bigger than themselves. They had seen the star, right? The evidence was real. So now they had to go find him. They were risking everything to find him. They were willing to leave the safety of their homes and begin this perilous journey to seek a king. The wise men let the prophecies lead them to Jesus. They were seeking Jesus. And Deuteronomy 4 says this, but if from there you seek the Lord your God, you'll find him if you seek him with all your heart and with all your soul. See, the wise men didn't just believe these, theoretical prophecies about the coming king. They went to find him. So I think the first way that we can have more joy this Christmas is to seek Jesus. Think about it. What do you seek? I think our level of joy at Christmas is directly related to what we're seeking. So ask the question, what is it that I want to get out of Christmas? What is it that would make your Christmas just wonderful and satisfying? Snow? You might be disappointed here. All the family together and happy. Wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be awesome? What would make your Christmas joyful? This feeling you define as holiday spirit, or maybe it's finding the right present to give or getting the present you've been hoping for. Well, the problem with all of those is that, honestly, they can leave us disappointed. I mean, have you ever had that kind of experience where you were disappointed by Christmas because it didn't actually deliver what you thought it would? The problem is not Christmas. It's our expectations. We're looking for the wrong thing. See, the Magi, the wise men, show us how to increase our level of joy at Christmas. In verse 2, it says, they came to Jerusalem and said, where is he who's been born King of the Jews? Because we've seen his star and we've come to worship him. They were looking for Jesus. Christmas was actually an opportunity to worship Jesus. And that's what we need to do as we are expecting Christmas. Let's have an experience of worship, a glimpse of who he is. And I just think if our goal as a church family this Christmas is just to worship Jesus, then I doubt very seriously that we'll be dissatisfied with the experience. So how about it? Let's make that's what we do this Christmas. When those wise men came on that journey, it was for the purpose of worship. They bowed down and they worshiped him. I mean, they had started that journey with just an idea of what they would find. And then when they got there, they fell to their knees in humble adoration, not to this powerful world dictator, but to a little child. And you know what? They didn't need an explanation of who he was. They didn't wait and see what he would do for them. There were no questions, no demands. They just worshiped. These men, who were the smartest of their time, the scientists of their time, they humbled themselves and worshiped Jesus. I imagine that it might have looked a little bit ridiculous if someone had been watching, someone unfamiliar with the word. And maybe sometimes our worship of God looks ridiculous to some people we know. They might question, what you're doing, and why do you go to that church, and why do you believe in God, and why are you seeking Jesus? Well, all I know is that the wisest men of that time bowed down and worshiped Jesus, and I think the wisest men still do. So you want to have a great Christmas? Take the expectations about what is done to you, and you make the decision to seek Jesus. Then it won't matter if weird Uncle Al and crazy grandma lose it, because you're seeking Jesus. It won't matter if parents who are supposed to get along don't get along. It won't matter if you don't get the gifts you want, because you're seeking Jesus. You want to have joy this Christmas? Take the expectations off and you seek Jesus. Okay, that's the first one. And the second thing we can learn from the Magi is they gave gifts. They sought Jesus, they worshiped him, and they gave gifts. So why don't we make the decision to be givers? Usually when it's someone's birthday, they get the presents. Right, my birthday is in December. It's in 3 days. 3 days. And often people will give me a present, and they'll say, "Happy birthday and Merry Christmas." That is wrong right there. That's just wrong. And so the people that do that, I just make the decision that in their birthday in July, I'm going to go, "Happy birthday and Merry Christmas." I'm just kidding. And then there are people who are just perhaps hard to buy gifts for. They seem to have everything. But Christmas is actually about celebrating the birth of Jesus. And I just think maybe he should get some presents. So what is it that we can give Jesus? Well, these wise men, they brought gifts. And many say that this was the first Christmas gift. They brought gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh, which actually had some very symbolic meanings. And these gifts were amazing, but they weren't the first Christmas gift. The first Christmas gift was a gift from God to us. John 3:16, "For God so loved you, he so loved me, that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him wouldn't perish but have eternal life." And so here's why this verse is so central. What made that first Christmas so great is what God got to do. It says, God so loved the world that he gave. Giving is what love does. Giving is how love expresses itself. Giving is the heart of love, and therefore giving is the heart of God. Giving is what God is into. God is not a taker. God is a giver, and he's been giving from the beginning. James 1 says this, "Don't be deceived, my dear brothers and sisters," because honestly, I found in my years of ministry, a lot of people are deceived about this. He's not a taker. It says, "Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows." Every gift, every good and perfect gift is from above. God started this whole gift-giving thing, and he gives lavishly and continually. And so what made this first Christmas the best is that God finally got to give his best gift of all. It's like when God gave Jesus, he outdid himself. He put angels in the sky saying, "Woohoo, this is going to be the best gift ever." In Luke 2, this is what he said, "An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. But the angel said, 'Hey, don't be afraid, because I'm bringing you good news. This is the best present ever that will cause great joy for all the people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You'll find a baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger.' And then suddenly, a great company of the heavenly hosts appeared with the angel, praising God and saying, 'Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace to those on whom his favor rests.'" God is a giver. He's not a taker. So here's what I was thinking that would make this the best Christmas ever. We keep our eyes on Jesus, we seek him. And then it's not how pretty the church looks on Christmas Eve, and it's going to look amazing. It's not how great the music is, and the music is going to be amazing. It's not the stuff we get. It's not the food we eat. It's not the moments we create. It's not just the feelings we experience. But what if What if we were to get so filled up with the love of God that we were to become conduits of God's blessing to other people around us? Like people who are under-resourced, who are hurting, who don't have much hope. What if we were to be so filled up with the love of God that we were to see and pray and take care of and express record amounts of compassion? What if we did that? What if we were to so love the world around us that we were to give the best Christmas gift ever to people? Giving. So what are you giving? It seems that the custom of giving gifts to Jesus, established by the wise men, has changed, and we kind of give gifts to each other, and I'm okay with that. But I just think we need to remind ourselves what Christmas is really all about. And so I wonder this morning what it would be like if for just one Christmas, we would make a decision to spend just as much time and energy and thought into making a gift for Jesus. But what could we give him? And he's like the God who has everything, right? Well, Micah, the prophet Micah, must have been going through a little bit of that same dilemma, because in the scripture he wrote this. Micah chapter 6, verse 6, he says, "With what shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before God on high? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams or 10,000s of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul?" In verse 8 it says, "He has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justly and love kindness and mercy and humble yourself and walk humbly with your God?" So Micah's asking that question. What should I bring you, Lord? And it's kind of like a Christmas list. Calves a year old, thousands of rams, rivers of oil. But then the answer comes back and says, no, actually, God doesn't want your stuff. What God wants are these three things. He wants you to act justly and love mercy and kindness and walk humbly with God. So I'm wondering this Christmas if maybe not only could we be a giver, but we could give Jesus a gift, and this is the gift. We love justice, we walk humbly, to love mercy and kindness and walk humbly. Okay, justice. Let's look at the first one, justice. We're wrapping up the gift of justice to give to Jesus. You know the word justice? It means to make right what has been wrong, to bring fairness. And there is so much in the world that just doesn't seem fair. I wonder if we who are part of the church could wrap up this little gift called justice and bring it to the manger. Many of us are being and have been stirred by the plight of those in need, and we're doing what we can to do our part to make right what was wrong. Many of us have sponsored children around the world. Many of us have gone on mission trips with us, and hundreds of us fed the homeless on Thanksgiving. We're walking in justice. And we're giving an opportunity now with the Christmas offering for you to give to help us bring justice where there has been injustice. But then on a practical, everyday level, how about if we're just and fair with one another? Like in our marriages. Why don't we decide to be the one to make right what has been wrong? Usually in any conflict Philip and I might have, it's all his fault. And yeah. And usually I'm waiting for him to make it right. But how about this Christmas? I make it right. Why don't we tell God? We'll be fair in our play. We promise not to cheat. We promise always to be just with each other. We promise to be fair in our businesses. We promise that we won't cheat our customers. We'll always be honest. In our neighborhood, we'll open our eyes to where there might be an injustice and make it right. How about we wrap up that gift for Christmas? Are you willing to open up your eyes to ask God to show you where there might be an injustice that you can make right? And then the second gift he mentioned was kindness, mercy and kindness. Every time that you do good, every time that you and I are kind, every time we share with someone less fortunate than ourselves, we're actually pushing back the darkness. Every time you give a helping hand to someone who's struggling, every time you offer encouragement to someone who's discouraged or visit the sick or pray for someone who's hurting, every time we do some kindness, people actually see God. And when they do, then God receives the praise. I can't think of a better Christmas present. Every time we get the opportunity, we should be, our kindness will lead people to God. Just a few days ago, I was going for a walk with a friend of mine, and as we were walking, we noticed a gentleman, a little older, walking near us. And it was just with my girlfriend, Megan, and we were laughing and talking and just being, girls. And he looked over at us, and he kind of smiled, but he was pretty awkward. And then we kind of got a little closer, and then I just looked at him and just smiled at him. I said, "How you doing?" And he said, "Actually, I'm not doing good." And I said, "Oh." And he said, "Well, I have AIDS, and I'm headed to my doctor." And I could tell that he was not well. And I said, "Hey, okay if I just pray for you right now?" He said, "I'm pretty sure God is mad at me." He said, "I've done some really horrible things." And then he started to cry. And then I started to cry. And he said, I don't think God will ever forgive me. And I said, "You know what? We've all done horrible things. We've all made mistakes. And that's why God actually gave us the gift of Jesus. So can I pray for you right now?" And he said, "Okay, but you don't have to touch me or anything." I said, "I'm going to touch you." So I just reached right in there and hugged him and started to pray. And when I started to pray, he really started weeping. And I prayed about Jesus and surrender. And then by the end, he looked at me and he had this very watery smile on his face. And he said, "Wow, I just feel lighter. How about this Christmas? We just be kind to people." That's the kind of gift that Jesus wants. To look for those who are hurting, and we just be kind. He walked away very differently than he walked up. Let's be kind. Because the result of unkindness is rejection. I mean, have you ever been treated unkindly? And then you get this feeling and that nobody really likes you or wants to be with you. And then this reminds me of like the lepers in the New Testament times. Wherever they went, these lepers, every time they walked, they had to announce, "Unclean, unclean, unclean." How must they have felt when people looked at them and turned and ran away from them and wouldn't touch them? They weren't even welcome in their own homes or among family. But when they came to Jesus, he didn't turn and he didn't run. He reached out and he touched them and he healed them. He treated them with kindness, and the result was healing. Or what about the woman that Jesus met at the well? How many husbands had she had? I think it was like 5. And then the man she was now living with wasn't her husband. She was branded by the whole community as immoral. When she walked down the street, they must have snickered and insulted her. They must have been so unkind to her that she was even afraid to come to the well in the morning or in the evening when anyone else came. Instead, she came in the middle of the day when it was stinking hot because she could be by herself. And it was there she found Jesus. What if Jesus had been unkind? What if Jesus had said, "I want nothing to do with you, you immoral woman"? But he didn't. Rather, he spoke to her in such a way that woman felt loved and embraced. And then she ran back to town and she told people about this man called Jesus. Romans 2:4 says, "Don't you see how wonderfully kind and tolerant and patient God is with you? Does this mean nothing to you? Can't you see that it's his kindness that's intended to turn you from your sin? It is kindness that softens people's hearts. Kindness is an amazing gift to bring at Christmas. How about this Christmas we just give the gift of kindness? So why don't we practice today being kinder to one another? Like when you leave the parking lot. I'm prophesying, there'll be a line. Okay. How about you just be kind? There are amazing people volunteering. They're not even in service. They're volunteering in the parking lot. How about you wave at them and just be kind and thank them when you leave? Or how about if somebody's coming your way, you just go, "No, you go first. No, you go first." I'd rather see that fight. You go first. Just be kind. And today when you're in a restaurant or walking out with friends, how about you just make the decision that this Christmas is going to be great because you're wrapping up kindness. Let's be kind. And then the third gift, he said, is to walk humbly with our God. Walk humbly, not arrogant, just respectful. The Lord told Micah he wanted one more gift, humility. Now Jesus, when he was born, he came into a world that was not impressed with humility. He came into a world that was very influenced by Greek culture and art, and people were arrogant and proud, and they thought that if you were in the cool, then you would have a bunch of slaves and you'd live among the aristocracy. You'd wear lots of jewelry and flash that among the common people. So Jesus came into a world greatly impressed with power. And you know, if there was ever a baby worthy of pomp and circumstance, it was Jesus. Jesus, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. But you know, he wasn't born into privilege. He was born in a manger. Couldn't get much lower than that. Actually, you could. He was born with a hint of scandal. You know, Queen Elizabeth, when she has visited our country, it's a big deal for her to come. She brings 2 tons of luggage, 2 outfits for every occasion, full medical staff, her own toilet seat. Awesome. Way to go, Lizzie. Hairdressers, servants, a host of security personnel. A brief visit from the Queen of England cost $20 million. A visit from God to earth in a manger. More animals than people to witness it. Jesus came as a servant to serve. He came humbly. Let's give that gift. Let's walk in humility. Be willing, just this Christmas season, give this gift. Be willing to be wrong. You know, it just takes a little bit of humility to admit that you don't know the whole picture. It just takes a little bit of humility to admit that you might be wrong. Why don't we be the first one to say, I'm sorry? In fact, let's practice today. This might be a shock to some of you. Ready? We're all going to say, I'm sorry together. 1, 2, 3. I'm sorry. Look, you've already warmed up those pipes. So go ahead. This Christmas, why don't you offer that in an argument? You be willing to say, I'm sorry. Even if on the inside you go, not sorry, not sorry, not sorry. But you say, sorry. Let's give that gift. How about doing more listening than talking? Wow. Now for women, that's harder. So it's a bigger gift. Humility. All right, so to have joy this Christmas, it's not that complicated. Quit looking for other stuff around you. Quit looking for what everybody can do for you. Quit being distracted by crazy relatives and hurtful situations at home. But if you're going to have joy this Christmas, seek Jesus first. Keep your eye on Jesus, on what he did, on who he is. Seek Jesus. And second, make the decision to be a giver. Be a giver. Be a giver. Give to others justice, kindness. Walk in humility. Amazing. What if we did that, church? Family, what if we did that this year? We gave those gifts. I think it would be the best Christmas ever, don't you?